How's everyone doing? I hope everyone is doing well. What I just did is I put in the chat, I put, let me find where the chat window went. I put the template for today. I just put it in again. Go ahead and click on that template to get started. And you know, have to log in, do all that good stuff. Let me pull up my notes on my side and then we'll get going. All right. So today we're going to do a few different things. Today we are going to, so last week, if you remember, what we did is we built out an interface that allowed us to find how far away things were, how far away our bikes were. We built that out, and then that was the majority of it, which meant a lot of hitting APIs, a lot of working with Google Maps API. We're going to do a bit more on the Google Maps. And additionally, we're going to kind of clean up a bunch of loose ends. We're going to make sure that you can list your bike with us, that you can upload a new bike. We're going to deal with permissions, so making sure that only logged in users can list their bike. We're going to build out the features around deleting a booking. So if you've booked something and you don't want it anymore, you should be able to delete it. You want to be able to delete your bike. So if you've listed your bike, you should be able to delete it. And finally, what we're going to do is we're going to modify the code we did last week around building out the distance information and converting it over, instead of just kind of hard coding the API, actually using the Google Maps node module. So today, here's some Corvid things we're going to learn. We're going to learn how to use backend node modules, which just makes your code really, really extensible. Pretty good. We're going to learn how to work with permissions within Corvid. We're going to learn how to work with light boxes, which is kind of this little, to be honest, most times they're used for newsletters, right? Sign up for a newsletter, but there's like pop-ups that come on within your screen. And we're going to learn a little bit more about, we've done a bunch on creating items. We're going to also learn about how to delete items. All right. And as usual, do your best to follow along. Christy Renee said, will I be able to go back to the first lesson so I can catch up for this lesson? The answer is yes. It's all on YouTube. We've emailed them out already, but here I will actually just post the YouTube links for previous sessions. Let me pull it up on my side. Where is it? Your channel. Here, videos. So here's day one, which I'll post right now in the chat. And let me get day two. Here it is, here's day two. And here's day two. And then someone asked, will the concept of Google Maps work with Google Translate API? Yes. All the stuff on the APIs works for any API. Obviously, there's specifics that are different, right? You don't care about the distance between two words or something like that. What you care about is translating it, but same concepts. Okay, let's get into it. I'm gonna share my screen. And share screen, and make sure I share the right screen. Here it is. And I have already clicked the template URL. I'm going to log in. And I'm going to spin up my Wix editor. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to convert from hard-coded API stuff all the way to using the Google Maps node module. So let me pull up what we did last time. I'm going to go to code files, location bikes.jsw, make this a bit bigger. And what you'll see is this is the code we did last week. All right. Danny asked, you tried previewing, got an error, web method timeout. I'm going to get to that error in a second. I know there's an error. So hold on a second, we'll get to it. And we take a look, and what we have right here is we first get our secret Google Maps key, right? This is the API key. Then we find all of our bikes, get them all. And here we're console logging them. Then we grab the latitude and longitude of each of our bikes. Then we build our request URL. So we do Google Maps API, origin, destinations, all that, right? We pass it where are we starting and where are we finishing in our key. Then we actually run the request. This is us hitting enter and hitting the website, the web server. And then we iterate over and kind of add in these distances. So if I hit preview and go to the bikes page, it says error fetching data request failed status code 403. You may have also gotten a few different errors. There goes kind of retype elements undefined. You're going to get a bunch of different errors depending on exactly how this failed. And the reason for that is because with this new template, we need to make sure our key is in there. What I mean by that is, as you can imagine, when we make copies of things, we don't want our secret API key to get pulled over. So we have to re-add in our secret API key. So what I'm going to do is I am going to get my API key. Do people remember where to find their API key? If not, let me look at the chat. Yeah, it's in the secret. So the secret API key, so there's a few things. So one, what David's saying in the chat is you're correct. So the place that we want to put it is under settings, my dashboard. Oh, whoops, let me hit save site. Corvid week 3. Cool. And now I'm going to go to my dashboard. And remember, the secrets manager, what it does is it holds all of our secrets. And what we need in this case is the specific secret we're looking for is our Google Maps API key. So we go to settings, then at the bottom, secrets manager. You'll notice there are no secrets. Yet in our code, we explicitly say get the secret Google Maps key. So what we need to do is log into our Google API console. If you all remember how we did that before, I'm going to post the API console link in the chat. So we're going to go to that link. And you're going to have to log in. I'm going to pause my share so I can log in without showing you a bunch of details. There it goes, paused, and I'm logging in. Do my two-step authentication. And I'm going to unpause it. So now I'm logged into the Google Cloud Platform API. If you were with us last week, this should look really familiar. And I'm just going to grab this project real quick. Which one was it? Cool. Demo project, and I'm going to go to credentials. Oh, most of you will have an API key here. I'm going to create a new one real quick. Cool. So most of your credential page will look like this. Just copy this API key and then go back to your dashboard, store a secret. The name needs to be the same name as Google Maps key right here. So Google Maps key. And then the value is that API key you got from Google Cloud. So I'm copy pasting API key for Google Maps. Save. Note the key is here. And we have a description. And now I should be able to preview this and we'll get a bit more success. There it goes. Our loading thing finished, 7.5 kilometers, 5.7 kilometers. So now ours is working because what I did is I re-added my API key back in. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. Added API key in. Now we can actually start moving forward. So go back to my editor. What you'll notice here is, Kate, it's interesting that you're saying this request timed out. Kate, did you work off of the template or are you working off of your code from last time? You're working off the template. Interesting. Did you, I would check to make sure that you put your key in the secrets manager. Does your when you go to secrets manager, does it look exactly like this with Google Maps key, the name here? One other thing I would try is just try refreshing the editor. I just hit a full refresh on the editor and then hitting a preview. Otherwise, it should work. And Kate, if that doesn't work, just kind of follow along as much as you can, and I can help you offline with kind of what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to move forward. This sucks. The reason why it's not any good is because what if the API changes? What if the way the request URL setup changes? What if the way destination setup? I mean, there's so many different things that could change here. In general, in any programming, we try to avoid kind of magical strings, right? This is a magical string. Just who knows? I mean, we know it came from here, but in 5 years, we look at this code, who knows where this came from? A much better way to work with an API is to use a module that the API creator created for us. Google being Google, they have created a node module that we can use to hit their API, and it will stay up to date no matter what changes in Google land. If they change the URL, it'll work fine. If they change their origins or the destination or the way latitude and longitude comes up or whatever, it'll always work because they're going to keep their node module up to date. Now, what I'm going to show you right now is actually pretty great. These packages, they're not specific to Corvid. They're just regular NPM packages. In fact, if we do a quick Google of NPM package Google Maps, a bunch of stuff is going to come up. And actually, I'm going to put out a quick poll to see if people can do this. Do a quick Google and see what's the name of the Google Maps API module, sorry, the Google Maps API node module that we're supposed to use. So if you Google around, it's somewhere on this page. NPM modules, for those of you who don't know backend JavaScript, they're effectively like libraries in the front end, but for backend. So you can think of, in the same way jQuery is a library for front-end development, NPM packages are libraries for back-end development. And thankfully, Corvid hooks into existing NPM packages, so you can get the whole gamut of NPM packages, which is, I think there's tens of thousands, if not maybe hundreds of thousands. I'm not sure. But that way you can use any NPM package, which is pretty cool. All right, I'm going to give folks another 15 seconds to see if they can figure it out. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Bunch of you got it right. A bunch were pulled off the trail by an old package. So if you look, that's a little bit probably frustrating for Google. When you search NPM package Google Maps, right, it comes up with this one, which seems like the perfect thing. It's from Google, it's called Maps. But if you click on it, this package has been deprecated, which means don't use it anymore. Please use Google Maps / Google Maps Services JS instead. That's what we're going to use. At Google Maps Services JS. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back to my website editor, and I'm going to install a new package. Go here, search. There it is. Do not install this. Install this top one. Hit install. Done. Pretty sweet. If you were running a backend server yourself, you would have to npm install and make sure it all worked and just all this stuff. With this, done. Great. Let me answer Danny's question real quick. Okay, so now we've installed the package, let's use the package, right? And we can do that. So we can do that by actually Googling what the package wants us to do. So if I go look at it here, accept the cookies, so we just did that. It wants us, to import a client from there, which makes sense. We then create a client, and in this case, it looks like it's trying to figure out the elevation of something, right? We want to find elevation. What are we looking for? We're looking for not elevation, we're looking for, if anyone gets in the chat. Looking for distance. Yeah, exactly. So we're probably going to want to do, instead of client.elevation, client.distance. First things first, though, we got to do some importing. So we can actually just copy paste this from documentation into our code. Now, since this is the first line of code we wrote, I'm gonna put all this in an Etherpad like I did last time and share that link out. So if you want to get to any of the code I'm writing, you can go to this Etherpad that I just shared in the chat. And so you can see, I'm just copy pasting from the documentation. And I've said this a million times now, but this is one of my favorite things about Corvid, which is that it's not that different from regular JavaScript. Almost everything you can do in JavaScript, you can do in Corvid. And what that means is it's not just an ability for you to do a bunch of things, which is great and important and all that, but it's also the fact that you can just read documentation. You can just read blog posts online. You can just read forum posts, Stack Overflow posts. Because since it's just regular old JavaScript, you don't have to do anything special to convert it to Wix, which is pretty cool. So we import these two things, and I'm going to now walk you through how we will use this library. What we're going to do is first things first. Let's first things first, we need to use our client. So what we're going to do is we're going to first create the client. All right, so that's the same code that they told me to do. I'll paste this into Etherpad. So first we create this client, right? And then it tells us to do a bunch of things with it. Let's go look at some better documentation for this. So if I go to the GitHub homepage and then here's a documentation. On the right here, I want distance. And now I'm working with distance. So distance has, there's a function called distance matrix, which accepts, oh my gosh, so many things. Most importantly, though, it expects a destinations, which is in the form of a lat long array, and an origins, which is in the form of a lat long array. And then what's the last thing we need to also make sure it knows about? It also needs to know about our key, right? It needs to know about our API key. In the exact same way that we had to pass the API key here, we're going to have to pass our client the API key into the node module as well. So let's do a little more digging. What is a lat long array? So lat long latitude pair is a 2-item array of latitude and longitude, a comma separate string, an object with lat long properties, or an object with latitude and longitude properties. I like this one, an object with lat long properties, right? I think that's the most straightforward. But first, let's start using it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say client.distance, oops, lowercase, distance matrix. Then I'm going to pass it an object with a whole bunch of things. So we need to give it params. And the params are going to give it our origins, destinations, and key, we'll say. So looking at origins, we want the origin, just like we did down here, the origin is the latitude and longitude that was passed into us. But it needs to be in the format of a latitude-longitude pair. So what we're going to do is a latitude-longitude pair is an object with lat-long properties. Great, we can do that. So origins is going to be an object with lat equals latitude, longitude equals longitude, and we're good to go. You'll notice I'm passing it an array, right? This is because it's a square bracket with a single object in it. Right, and the reason I'm doing that is because it says lat long and it's an array. So it's an array of lat longs, which is what we're doing. And key is easy. Key is key. Destinations is a bit harder because right now, the thing I'm doing with destinations is I'm just making it a big honkin' string with some pipes in between it, just a big, huge string. But what I need my destinations to look like is this, an array filled with objects that have two keys. The first key is lat, and the second key is longitude, is long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap out this for each, and I'm going to make this an array. My destinations is now going to be an array, and I'm going to say destinations.push, and we're going to push in a new object with lat equal to bike's location latitude and long. Oops. That. Great. So what I'm doing is I am pushing into my destinations array a new object containing two keys, lat and long. And this is the same as we did down here in the origins. Right? Remember, programming is like a lot of programming is just figuring out these patterns. I'm going to be honest to you all. When I first wrote this code, I got this wrong about 10 times before I realized exactly the format it needed to be in. I had to Google and Google and Google. And so if this doesn't come naturally to you for the first time, that's okay. So I'm going to do destinations. Using my destinations array. I already have my key. And we should be good to go with our client to distance matrix. We just need to do a dot then. So I'm going to now delete all this. So I no longer need this stuff. Actually, I won't delete it. I'll just comment it out down here. This is always the hardest part, refactoring code. Because you just want it all to work magically, but of course it never does. And let's see. Let's see, what's my error? Unexpected tick. Get all my braces done. Get all my braces done. Wait a sec. Looks like I might need an extra brace. Parentheses. All right, what doesn't it like? Parsing error, expected token. Oh. All right, let's see if I didn't break anything, and then I'll copy paste the code in. Not broken yet. All right, timed out. Let's see what we got wrong. So I'm going back to editor. I'm going to copy paste this code just so you all can kind of see what I'm doing so far. All right. Let's do a console log real quick. In here to see what we got wrong. I'm mostly trying to figure out why is my thing not resolving, right? It should be in theory. I don't know. I'm going to preview. All right, looks like I'm not hearing back at all. So I can keep going. What did I get wrong? Destinations. Let's make sure my destinations is right. Console.log destinations. Hit preview. That's weird. It's not even getting into destinations. Nor is the console logging bikes. I wonder what I'm doing wrong. Let me give this a refresh and just make sure I'm not doing something silly. All right, do a preview. There we go. That's the error I was looking for. All right, I had some weird issue, so I just hit a refresh. And now we're getting closer. All right, so here's my JSON. And what you can see about the JSON is we actually have to reach one layer deeper. So let me actually show you. So I'm going to remove some of these console logs. So we move this console log bikes, move this console log destination. And so say, printing out the JSON. Let's preview it, make sure everything's working here. So printing out the JSON, so this is that JSON object. And you'll see it looks a bit different. It has a status, text, data, rows, 0, elements. So that's where it is. So all the stuff that historically was just in the JSON object is now in JSON.data. JSON.data. So I'm going to go back to my editor and open up location bikes. And remember, when you're debugging stuff, the key to it is you just have to constantly be console logging. It's all about how many times can you console log. And I think a lot of programming is about being humble, right? You have to be humble about what do you think you are accomplishing. I think that this is working, that JSON has this element called rows. But when you're debugging, you just have to check everything. You have to go, even though you think you know what's in JSON, even though you know it's in JSON, you could be wrong. So at all times thinking, how could I be wrong? How can I check and verify that I'm not wrong? So a lot of debugging is just taking a look at your variables and making sure they have what you think they should have. So here I am going to bring out the JSON. I'm going to console log. I'm going to actually change this. Remember, instead of being JSON, it'll be JSON.data. So JSON.data.rows and JSON.data.rows. And I'm going to preview. And let's see. There it is, 5.7, 7.5. Rock on. That's awesome. So let me copy paste that code to everyone. Copy, paste. And what you can see, you know, let me make this a little bigger, is with the node module, it's not necessarily that it's less complicated, right? This is not that much less complicated than this was. What's going on here, though, is the translation from the JavaScript code to the API hit, the actual network request that's happening, is no longer happening by you, the developer. It's happening by Google. And what that means is that inevitably, it'll be done better. It'll be more aligned with how they want you to be doing it. And it will be up to date. So that means whenever they put out a new version of the API, they're going to put out a new version of the node module, which means all you're going to have to do is you're going to be able to update your node modules and be good to go, and you'll immediately have the latest stuff without having to change any of your code. That's why we use node modules, because we don't want to have to change our code. And if you can take a look here, this isn't drastically different, right? I got my origins, my destinations, and my key. Down here, I had my origins, my destinations, and my key. All right. How's everyone feeling? I don't see any. I know one open question from Danny. Danny, I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what's wrong with the thing. If you want to email me, I can set up a time to go walk through it with you as well. So just email me, joe@flatirondschool.com. And same with you, Kate. Okay, I'm going to move forward. Oh, great. Glad it's working, Kate. We just learned how to use node modules. Keep in mind, I think there are thousands of node modules. There's some really cool ones. Oh, whoops. There's some really cool ones. So I don't know. I mean, if you Google favorite NPM modules, the most popular NPM modules. Let's see what the internet says. A bunch of these kind of boring. These are not fun ones. Yeah, these are all boring. Owens, it's kind of cool. Allows you to log things a bit easier. Pretty much what I'm saying is that NPM modules has a ton of different things, and it allows you to extend your application without having to write a bunch of code, which is always exciting, right? So let's keep moving. Now I want to talk about permissions. What I want to talk about is if I hit preview and I go to list your bike, it allows me to list a bike. But in theory, I don't want anyone to list a bike. I just want logged in users to list a bike, right? So what I want to do is before this page loads, I want it to check and see, is this user logged in? If they are, great, keep listing your bike, have fun, do your thing. If they aren't, post up a little message that says, hey, you gotta log in, and redirect them into the login form. So first things first, you can see by default, you're always logged in preview. So I'm logged in as some admin account. If I hit log out, it's gonna say you have to head to your live published site. So let's go publish our site. Let's go back to editor, hit publish. Thank you, hit done. Don't try this again. Oh, I don't wanna add the mobile site, sorry. Hit the wrong button. Looks pretty good on the mobile site. Man, that's awesome. I'm gonna go to publish and done. And let's view the site. List your bike. And you can see, even though I'm not logged in, right, because it tells me to log in, I can still list a bike. Well, we don't want just anyone listing a bike, right? If you list a bike, you gotta have an account. So what I want is on this page, if you're not logged in, give me an error that says, hey, log in. And this is another great thing about Corvid is user login and user management and like my account and setting your first name and your last name and all that. That's not the thing that sets your app apart from a competitor, right? That's just table stakes. And you have to do it because you have to have user accounts. But because it's table stakes, because it's not your differentiator, rarely do you want to put a ton of time into building out a login functionality, because it doesn't matter. It's just like, it's table stakes. It's just the basics. And so Corvid and Wix does it all for you, which is pretty cool. So let's use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my editor. I'm going to open up my code. And the first thing I want to do is I want to make it so that if I want to see if I'm currently logged in or not. So to do that, I'm going to Google Wix Corvid check login status. Click on this one, Wix users. So this is another module. And remember, we've used a few modules before, right? We've actually used, in location bikes, we used the Wix data module, the Wix fetch module, the Wix secrets backend module. So this is another module, just like anything else. And if we take a look, it contains the functionality for working with your site's users from client-side code. And you can also do it from client-side code. And that's a property called current user with the current user visiting the site. Click on that link, get some stellar documentation as usual. We have to import Wix users, and then we should be able to say, hey, let's take a look at the user. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to copy my import Wix users into my list your bike. So right there, I'm going to bring this into, whoops. So let me update the Etherpad. Location. JSW. And make sure that is in there. So this goes in location by JSW. Then enlist your bike. I'm now going to put this code. Cool. So now you should be able to see it on your side as well. So I've already imported the module. These are all modules like you've done before. And now I want to say let user equals Wix users our current user. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm just going to console log the user to see kind of what are my options here, right? And let's tab both these in. And if I hit preview, open developer console, it says the ID is this crazy login, logged in is true, and the role is a member. Make sense? And then cool, I have a thing about how to improve my speed with caching, which is great. That's great. So I'm gonna hit back to editor. I'm gonna go to publish. Let's see what it looks like if I'm not logged in. So I'm gonna view the site. I can't log in. Actually, it's easier to deal with this, just preview. We'll just do it within preview. So we have our current user already done. Now, what I want to do is I don't want just the current user. I want to check if they're logged in or not. Given this preview, so this is what the current user is, what can I do to check and see if this user is logged in or not? I'm going to launch a poll to see if you can figure it out. What can I do to figure out if this user is logged in or not? I'm checking to see. I'm not doing an action, I'm just checking to see. $30 seconds or so. Two, one. All right. Looks like about half you got it right. The answer is we want to use this logged in property, right? So I'm going to hit back to editor. And I'm going to say, you know, if Wix users.current user dot logged in. Oh, if they're not logged in, then I'm going to say console.log, please log in. Right. Hit preview. And because I'm logged in with preview, I won't show this. So let me go back to editor and let me publish this. And I'm going to inspect elements so that we can then see our console logging happening. Let me get over here and right click on my screen, inspect. And let me go to list your bike and see the console log happened. Please log in. And that's because I'm not logged in, right? So every time I refresh this, because I'm not logged in, it's going to always say, please logged in. Right, there we go. Sweet. Now, instead of saying console log, please log in, because that's boring and who cares, right? What I want to say is actually put up a box that says, hey, you got to log in. Thankfully, I've already written that code for you. I've written that kind of work for you. If you go to our page code, these light boxes, I have a login prompt light box. So if I click on that, it says you must be logged in to list your bike. And I have everything written for you. So what it does is if it's logged in, it'll close it for you, right? If you do log in, it'll close it for you. And if you click the button, it'll prompt you to log in. That should all be written for you. And yet again, Wix window, what is this? This is a Wix Corvid module. And we've used Wix window before. Where have we used Wix window before? Anyone have ideas? We've used Wix window before in our bikes all to get location information. See? So all I need to do, because I wrote this code for you, is to display this light box whenever you're not logged in. And just like right here, I show you how to close the light box. You can imagine opening it is a pretty similar operation, right? So what I can do is go to list your bike. Then if it's not logged in, we just say, let me import Wix window. Window dot open lightbox, and see it says right here that it requires a name. So we're gonna say open lightbox, and our name is login prompt. Cool. And preview, it should not load up because remember I'm logged in. So I'm gonna go back to my editor and I'm gonna hit publish. Great, I'm gonna go over to my site, I'm gonna hit refresh. I'm not logged in, and so this should show me my light box. Hit refresh, see if it worked. Sweet, it says you must be logged in to list your bike, hit login, brings you over here. By default, you always have a login account that's the same user and password as your Wix account. So for me, that's my Wix account. And now that I'm logged in, it's no longer asking me for this. Rock on. So we've now done that. Let me copy paste my code to make sure everyone has it. So this is my code for list bike. Before I move forward a little bit, any questions I can answer so far? I know sometimes your code might not be working exactly right. I'm happy to answer some of those, but if there's any other kind of like general questions about permissions and logging in, anything like that, I'm happy to answer. Any questions? Cool. All right, no real questions. I'm gonna keep going. The next thing I want to get done is I want to get my bike listing thing to work. So if I hit preview, hold on, my computer is doing a lot of work right now. Oh, I just lost internet for a second. Close some tabs here. All right. Go to preview and on preview, thank you. List your bike. If I want to list my bike, my entire computer is just like slowly shutting down. Let me try closing some stuff. Great. What I can do here is if I do ASDF, and then this is my bike, I can also add an address. And so in theory, I should be able to do, say, 11 Broadway is where the finance school office is. And by default, the way this works is this is an official address importer. And so what that means is actually it's going to hit Google Maps to autocomplete the address for you. And you've seen this before because you've probably seen it. Actually, let me pull up another site where you've seen it, because it's a really incredible interface that makes accessing your users entering addresses without messing it up really powerful. So let me find another example of it. So here's actually my solution. Let me share that screen for you. So I'm just going to share my whole screen. So this actually is my solution. And if you see here, if I type in, let's say 11 Broadway, it immediately gives us this autocomplete for us. And that's really powerful because addresses are a pain to install, to input. And also because we're doing Google Maps and this GPS and latitude and longitude and all that stuff, we need our users to input their address perfectly. So we're using a built-in Wix component, which is called the address inputter. So if I go over here, you can see ours is broken. Let's fix it. Go back to editor. It's an address input, connect to Google Maps. You'll see there's an API key in here. We're going to delete that API key because that's a bad one. And we're going to have to put our own API key in. Does everyone remember where we find a Google Maps API key? In the API console. Exactly. So let's go to API console, which should look like this. I'll post this link in the chat. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this exact same key. So I pasted mine in. I'm going to hit preview. And it doesn't work. The reason it doesn't work is we need a different set of APIs. So our API key that we've hooked up this already with, if I click on it, you can see. If I go to, let's see, what's the right way to, this account, if I go to the APIs, this account, it's only enabled for distance matrix. And as you can imagine, this is not a distance matrix, this is about address lookup. And so Wix actually has some pretty good documentation on how to do this. So we go to connect Google Maps, we hit the little question mark, and they say, hey, click here to learn how to get a Google Maps API key. What we need to do is we need to enable the Places API, the Maps JavaScript API, and the geocoding API. So we need more than just the distance matrix API. So we go to our APIs, and it wants me to do Places API. Okay, so I go here, go to the Places API, I enable. Come on. All right, and I go back to my APIs, and then it wants me to do the Maps JavaScript API. So I do the Maps JavaScript API, and I enable it. And then the next one it wants me to do is the geocoding API. And the geocoding API converts an addressed 11 Broadway to a latitude and longitude. Isn't it, oh man, it's so cool, the stuff we can do with APIs. The fact that you can take any address in the world and convert it to a latitude, longitude in milliseconds for free, crazy. So crazy. Go to APIs again, geocoding, and enable. Cool. Everything's enabled. Close this up. Close this up. Hit preview. In theory, let me give a refresh and see if it starts to work soon. My Siri just kicked off for some reason. Stop it, Siri. Hit preview. List your bike. And there we go. We're starting to get autocomplete. Pretty cool. I'm going to be honest, I've actually had to implement these address inputs before. Ed Yee asks, can you use the secrets manager to store the API key for the address input object? I actually am not sure. I don't think you can, which brings up a very important thing, which it goes into in the documentation, which is, we go to documentation, it'll tell us right here. If your API key is not protected, others may be able to use it, and this may lead to unexpected high fees. Make sure to protect your keys by setting up HTTP refers and restrict your key to allowed domains only. You click Learn More, and it'll then actually tell you everything to do. So down here, you can then actually make it so that it only works with your Wix site, right? So you can view your editor's URL. And so the basic way to do this, right, because what Ed pointed out is that this is a possible security vulnerability because you're giving everyone the client. So the way you can do this is you go to your API key here, hit the little edit button. And then you want to refer to HTTP refers. We're going to add an item. What we're doing here is we're going to have to put in the URL that you want to restrict it to. So only things in this URL can actually use this API key. And it gives us directions of how to do that. So it should be editor.wix.com/html.editor/web/renderer. And you have this crazy URL, which is the URL I have up here. And it says remove everything after renderer. So I'm going to grab just the stuff before renderer. And then it says add to it the following text, render/document. Okay, so I'm adding that. And then it says, finally, add your unique site ID, 32-digit code, and you're done. So this site ID, which for me is this thing up here. It's the thing after edit. So D3 all the way through to the question mark. And then /*, which means like all of them are there. Hit done and save. And now this is a completely restricted API key. It can only be used by the preview window. So if I hit preview and do 11 Broadway, it still works. But if I was someone else, a hacker, they wouldn't be able to use the API key. So that's how you get around the fact that it's on the client side. Okay, so now we're able to make bikes. We're able to list our bike. We block it with permissions. We're able to show you how far away bikes are. There's only a few more features left. And that's really about, as an account owner, how do I manage my bikes and my reservations? So I have, if you use a template, I've already added in a new collection called Bikes Bookings. And what this is this is a new collection that registers every single booking. Oops, refresh. Every single booking against that bike. And I did this kind of based off of the existing Wix bookings feature, which works well if you're booking like services. Doesn't quite work well if you're booking items or doing this, but that's okay. And the way it works is pretty straightforward. Come on. There it goes. It has a start and an end, and then the bike that it's attached to. So the start is September 14th at 11. The end is, so the start's at 10 a.m., the end's at 11 a.m., and the bike is a giant Contend SL1, right? And the way this then works is in my bikes, each bike that I've set up has a schedule column. This schedule column, if we kind of expand it, it looks like you can see a start time and end time for each day. Right, and if you look at this, what is this? This is a JavaScript thing. What JavaScript thing is this? I'm gonna launch a poll. What does this look like? It's not quite an array. See, it opens up with a curly brace. So it's an object. Exactly, it's an object. And so this schedule, and this is a bunch of code that I wrote, and you can review it on your own time. If I then go to the ability to view a bike, so bike's title, and I go to preview, and you scroll down, you'll see I wrote a bunch of code that allows me to review this schedule. And so I can say book now, and it'll mark it as booked. And when I did that Wednesday at 9 a.m., if I go back to my editor, then look at the content manager and look at the bookings, you'll see Wednesday 9 a.m. was created. That's some code I wrote. You should definitely review it. I think it's pretty interesting. I took a lot of it from an existing tutorial on how to do this stuff. But while we're here, let's connect all this stuff up. So let's make sure this is all working. Our bike description, let me connect that up to the bike's description. Our image, let me connect that up to come on, stop it. What is my mouse is acting weird. How are you doing, mouse? I'll turn you off and on. And then so I connect this up to the image. And then last but not least, I have a map, which I can connect up to location, right? And the title can be my text, can be the title text, right? So now I just made my, this kind of all actually be real. If I hit preview, great, there's my bike. It has all of the description and it has its location. And it's pretty cool. You hit directions and it'll tell you how to get to where we're going, right? 11 Broadway. It's pretty sweet. So now we have this all set up, right? And go back to the editor. And what's my screen's like zoomed in. There it goes. This is all set up. So our title is set up, our bike page is set up. What else do we need to do? There's not actually that much left. Only thing that's left is the stuff that's built into our user account. So I'm gonna go to menu pages, and I'm gonna go to member pages, and then my bikes. So we go to my bikes, and here we should update all this. So yet again, I'm gonna click on our image, right? Image, connect, bikes, and image. Connect this up, bikes, and title. Connect this up, and get the description. And then down here, I'm gonna actually change this from a more button. I'm gonna change the text to be from more to delete, so I can delete each individual bike that you have. And let's hit preview to see if this works. And it does. That's great, right? Here's all your bikes. Now, let's write some code. I wanna get this delete button to work. So this delete button, what it needs to do is it needs to grab the current bike that I'm looking at, and it needs to, let me get my notes back up. What it needs to do is it needs to get this bike and remove it from the data set, right? So we can do that, pretty straightforward. What I wanna do is I'm gonna Google that real quick so we can see how to do it. It's pretty straightforward. So I'm gonna say remove item from data set in repeater. How about that? How to properly remove elements in a repeater. Oh, not connected to a data set. No, I am connected to a data set. Let's see, what else? Let's keep Googling this. Wix, Corvid. Cool, delete on entry, database entry on button. See my answer here. This is one of the Corvid community forums, which is pretty cool. If you take a look through this, eventually you'll find that you can just call remove. There's actually an even easier way to do this. They don't have it. So there's an even easier way to do this. So this is what I'm gonna do. You can actually call within the data set, you can just call the remove function. So I'm gonna do Corvid data set. Wix data set. Let's go to data set and removes the current item. So the remove function returns a promise, that's fine, when the current item is deleted in the collection. So pretty much what it's saying is if I call against this data set dot remove, it'll return whatever item you clicked delete on. So we're gonna do the exact same thing we've done a bunch of times now. We are going to select our button, right click, actually just show the screen bet down here, and I want a new event handler. When you click this button, it should delete. So I'm gonna do on click, that automatically makes it for us. Boom, 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 so good. Let's make sure it worked, console.log. This should all be stuff you all remember. And I'm gonna hit preview. There it goes, hit delete, button, great. If I go back to editor, what I wanna do is I wanna do the same thing that this calls. So it says my dataset.remove. Cool. I click on here. Does anyone know what's the name of my dataset? Can anyone put it in the chat? Any ideas? Almost, David. So the name of this dataset is actually the ID of the dataset in this case. So it's actually bikes dataset. You're right. That's the name of my collection. Bikes is the name of the collection. But the data set that's actually relevant to this page is pound bikes data set. Does that make more sense? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do $W pound bikes data set dot remove. Hit preview. Hit delete. And it's gone. If I go back to my editor, go to the content manager, hit the bikes. All gone, right? So now you can delete your own bikes. So you can create bikes, you can delete them, you can do bookings, you can remove bookings. Really, to be honest, the site is pretty much done. The last things we're going to do next week are we're going to learn a few more things. So we're going to end up a little bit early today, it looks like. We're going to learn a few more things next week. Next week, we're mostly going to learn about how to do things in the background. So you just booked a bike. How do you get an email confirmation, right? How do we set up custom email confirmations that remind you? How do we schedule email confirmations that remind you when you're done, right? How do we get an email confirmation that reminds you, hey, your bike reservation is coming up in 20 minutes? And then another email confirmation that says, hey, by the way, you have to return the bike in the next 5 minutes. So what we're going to do next week is we're going to learn how to send emails. We're going to learn how to do things in the background, scheduled. We're going to learn how to interface with another API. So if interfacing with this first API was a bit confusing, we're going to do it all over again. And it should be a little bit clearer. And as David asked, will these be custom emails? They will be custom emails. So we're going to write our own custom emails that knows people's names and knows how to work with their names. And so that way it's going to be all really super straightforward, right? And after that, we're done. We have an app that you can create bikes. You can book bikes. You get confirmations when they're coming in and out. You get, you can see what's nearby. You can see it's like a full-featured app. And Nancy just asked, how do we pair with payment features? So we're not going to cover payment features in this course, but there's mostly the reason why is because it's actually pretty straightforward. And if you Google like Corvid payment features, it's really straightforward. It's pretty built in. But next week, I will kind of show you the beginnings of that so that you understand kind of where you would hook in your payment features. I just think it's going to take 2 hours next week to just go over all the emailing and scheduling and all that stuff. So what did we learn this week? We learned how to work with node modules. We learned how to work more with data sets, right? How to remove things. Now we can create them, we can update them, we can delete them, we can read them. And we learned how to work with permissions, right? So you can do a lot of stuff right now. It's pretty cool. You know, like for example, in permissions, if you click on this bikes data set, I already set it up for you. Manage, not manage content, sorry. Hit settings. The filter is the owner. So the owner is the logged in user, which means this is only showing bikes owned by that owner, right? There's a bunch of different things that we can do here that is with Corvid just automatically done. So I'm going to stick around for a bit if you have any questions. I'm going to email all this code out. I'm going to get tomorrow morning the YouTube video up, all that. And next week, we're going to go into emailing our users, background tasks, and scheduled tasks. All right, any questions I can answer? Give another few minutes. Can we, Lily asked, could we also send by email PDFs? Yes, I'm pretty sure you can. I'm pretty sure you can. We'll have to, I'll look into it, but I'm pretty sure you can. Usually you can send attachments. We're going to use a pretty standard emailing service called SendGrid, which is very standard. And so you'll be able to email PDFs as well. All right. It was great talking to everyone. And Lily, you can modify the schedule of a bike. Right now, there's no way we're doing it in the interface, just in the interest of making something a bit simpler. But you're right. If you wanted to extend it, you'd want to be able to change that schedule, right? All right. Any other questions? Email me, joe@flatironschool.com, and have a great rest of your evening. I'll see you all later. Bye.